Hey besties, I want to show you the process I went through to make the Marisol Jumper. Here I am modeling one of my recent versions. It's really sensory friendly. It goes with the whole day to bed vibe that I love. As a beginner, this is probably the second garment that I feel like I was able to master. Maybe I made a modification or two, but I really liked it. Let's get started. First things first, this is a free pattern found on the Mood Society website. Only 4 pattern pieces that you can print off. This is a digital pattern and you will need to print off all sizes at once. Once you've printed off the pattern and taped everything together, it will look like this. Since I've used this pattern before, I had saved the main pieces that are already cut and taped together. But here I will cut the straps. I initially forgot to cut pockets, but I will get to that in a bit. With most of my pattern pieces ready, I start to prepare the fabric. This is like a light to medium jersey knit. It's very fluid and I tried to tame it with some pressing. If you want more detail on how pressing and ironing are different, Cornelius Quiring does a really great job of explaining this, and I've included the link to his video here. Once you feel your fabric is lying flat without any wrinkles, you are going to want to start to put on the pattern pieces and cut out your fabric. Here I am cutting the front. The front and back look very similar, so I saved myself a lot of time and I put a piece of green painter's tape on each leg and put an F or a B for front and back, and that saved me a lot of time when I was not only cutting but when I was sewing this together and trying it on. Given the fluidity of the fabric, I didn't cut out any notches while there are very few. I just kept the pattern close by and referred back to that when I needed to join notches for something. If notches is a new term for you, I'll link to Evelyn Wood. She gives a great explanation, but long story short, these are markings that you make on the fabric to show you where to match pieces up when it's time to sew. I believe there's a consistent 1/2 inch seam allowance for this project. However, if you go with a different seam allowance, just be consistent. If seam allowance is a new phrase for you, it's fairly simple. It's the distance between the cut edges of your fabric and the area where you are stitching. For more information, here's a quick guide from Mood Fabrics. I'm also linking here to a quick guide on grain line. If grain line is new to you, please give this a look. This will show you how to set up your pattern so that you cut the fabric correctly. Here I am cutting the 4 shoulder straps that I need, 2 straps for each side. Sewing work came to a screeching halt when I took on the project to make 15 Jedi robes for the autism community for an annual Jedi party. And on to the fun stuff, which is either pinning or clipping the 2 front sides and the 2 back sides to each other, the right sides facing each other. In other words, you're going to be sewing on the wrong side or the inside part so that when you're wearing the jumper, nobody's going to see all the work that you put in. The pattern maker did include some really good picture instructions. So here's a picture of the front side of the garment. You're going to want to put the 2 sides of the front together, right sides, in other words, the outside parts together so that you're sewing on the inside or the wrong side. The back looks very similar, so I will not put in that extra screenshot. Here you can see the back sides clipped together, right sides together, and ready to sew. So I stitch top to bottom as is indicated on the Mood website, and I use the very overlock stitch, which is very similar to a serger stitch. Hey guys, so for this jumper I use the very overlock quite a bit. It's a stitch that mimics in many ways the overlocker, and my overlocker's in quiet time. So for my Burnett B77, it's going to be the 3rd option. Number 3, I love this stitch. Check it out. And back to the jumper. Voila, very quickly the fabric starts to look like a garment. I pull down a general pocket pattern that I have on a bulletin board nearby. The Marisol pattern does come with a pocket but this was just a little quicker and easier for me. To make the 2 pockets, I cut a total of 4 pieces. 2 pieces are mirrored. I will show you a screenshot here of how to lie these down on the pants so that they end up fitting well for your jumper. For whatever reason, I always messed up the placement of the pockets as a beginner, and you may as well. So my advice is to baste them in place first. That means using a straight stitch at the widest length possible, or pin or clip them in place and test them out before you commit to sewing them in place. Remember to take your time. Listen to something like I am with my earphones. Focus in on doing this once and doing it right. Or doing it a bunch of times and learning how to get it right, which is equally, if not more, satisfying. Remember, you are not in the industry of fast fashion. Now, you've already attached the 2 front pieces to each other at the midpoint, like where your belly and your chest are, and the back pieces together in the middle point. Next, you're going to sew the 2 back and the 2 front pieces to each other, the side of your hips. The pockets included from top to bottom. When you're done sewing that part, make sure that your pockets match up with what you're seeing here on the screen, again from the Mood Fabrics pattern creator. As you can see, I'm also proudly holding up my masterpiece, and my next step is to sew the crotch area. Now we're getting really close to the finish line besides the straps, but we do want to make sure to hem the bottom of the pants and make sure there are no raw edges around the garment. So the neckline, the underarms, all of that needs to be hemmed over or stitched so that it is cleaned up. I am loving how this fits and feels, even though this jumper is not going to end up being mine. Last big step are the straps. So there are 4 rectangles in total, 2 for each side. Put the right sides together, and I straight stitch them about 95% of the way complete. Clip the corners like you're seeing me do here, and then you're going to flip the straps right side out. There we go. And I get a little pokey thing in a moment. That's my seam ripper to kind of poke out those corners. But clipping the corners on the inside helps to make straighter corners. Then there's a little bit of fabric remaining that you will need to stitch closed just so the straps are fully sewn. So I try to make it as neat as possible, and I'm back to the machine for a quick straight stitch. I find this picture to be very helpful, again from the Mood Fabrics website, for how to attach your strap to the front and back of the garment. I finished this with a classic straight stitch with maybe a few zigzags just for good measure. As a final step, you are going to want to scrutinize your garment inside and out for holes, snags, anything that's gone awry. And then you get to try it on in front of the camera, see how great it looks, feel how great it feels. Even though this Marisol jumper is a gift for someone I love and I won't be able to keep this, I know that they're going to love it. Chicken wing, hot dog and bologna, chicken and macaroni.